Welcome to another episode of Roll or Die. We like to bring you the guests from all around this wide brown land of ours. It's been a little while since we've been up to the top end, so we thought we would visit our friends in Darwin again. Today we have the head coach of the Jiu-Jitsu studio in Darwin and a longtime friend of mine, Warrick Drew. Thanks for joining us, Warrick.
Howdy all. Thanks for having me, both of you. Good to be here.
Thank you, man. And I understand you've got a couple of little kiddies running around today, so we might get some extra.
Yeah, no, I sent them out. To be honest, keep them out of the way.
That's the way.
My daughter's 14 and a green belt under me. She was almost keen to kick me out and take over the whole interview herself, so I sent her packing.
It's good to have confidence in your kids. I like that, man. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. So you were just saying you run the jiu-jitsu side, and Queenie, I know Queenie well, so runs the judo side. So you have equal parts judo and jiu-jitsu there, or how it's the split?
Yeah, pretty much spot on even. So 2 days a week we are in judo, and 2 days a week we're in jits, and then the rest of it's sort of open mat for the crossover to do whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested to know what's growing faster, the judo or the jiu-jitsu side, because obviously one's,
Jits by far.
Yeah.
That's not even, as much as I love the judo side, it's just not, the popularity, it's just not there. The injury rate's higher, and if you don't start it young, you typically don't like it when you're old.
Yeah, your body doesn't like it even if you do.
Yeah.
That's right. That's it. Yes, for sure. And tell us about your start into the martial arts in general, Warrick. It sounds like you've got a bit of a background, not just in jiu-jitsu, but in all of them. So
probably, my father's was a fourth dan judoka, so I probably started that when I was 5.
Mm-hmm.
And then moved through into kickboxing, Muay Thai for many years. I tried some open hand Shotokans and some Jeet Kune Do and stuff like that over the years. And then from the kickboxing moved into the cage, and then from the cage I moved into jits and didn't look back.
Wow. So you've done MMA, like how many MMA fights did you have?
I don't know, it's probably 8 or 10 or so. I just do fill-ins now. So a mate of mine runs shows, and he'll ring me up if somebody's missing and just say, hey, can you get in and keep the show alive? So I just jump in there and give it a go.
Wow. Oh, so
still now?
If he rang me tomorrow, if he rang me tomorrow and said, hey, I've got a fight to pull out, I need someone to jump in, I'll jump in, yeah.
Amazing.
Wow.
How does your body stand up to that, man? I mean, like, seriously, like I do jiu-jitsu only, and I'm 50 this year, but I don't know how old you are. You're probably 20 or something. I don't know.
I'm 43 this year in a couple of months.
Okay. So how does your body withstand the blunt force trauma of being, kneed, kicked, punched? How does that work?
Look, the MMA is better than the kickboxing because you get to clinch and hold and go to ground. I think in my last MMA fight, I think I swung all of 4 punches in total. Went to ground and just put him to sleep from the rear naked. So
wow,
I gave up the striking side for jits, and I still utilize that now if I'm in a cage fight, I guess. But
and how many punches do you have to eat though? You swung 4. How many did you eat?
Yeah, well, yeah, you're always gonna eat some, aren't you? Right? But I prefer to eat a punch than a kick, to be honest, these days.
Right, interesting.
Yeah.
I love
it. There's no gloves on the feet,
True. No gloves on the feet.
Yes.
I think we could name the podcast that. There's no gloves on the feet.
And tell us a bit about the judo side of things too, Warrick. Like, how's that go? I know judo's pretty hard in general, like here in Melbourne, but wearing the gi and all of that, do you just get used to it there in Darwin with the heat and the humidity and stuff like that? Or
look, for both the judo and the jits, most of my guys prefer the gi. It just seems in my club there's more passion for it. I know 1 or 2 of the other clubs have more passion for the no gi, but we've just seemed to have more passion for the gi. So yeah, for us it's just it's the stand-up portion of our jits. You need it. The same as the guys in the judo side come across and do the groundwork with us because they need the Niawaza.
Mhm.
And with the change in the judo rules these days, where the ground time is becoming longer and longer, those of us in the jits realm are going across and having some fun in the judo. I mean, Queenie and I took probably over 60% of the Northern Territory state team to the Australian Nationals about a month and a bit ago. I took out 2 silver there alone in the judo world. So, and look, the majority of that were probably ground submissions, to be honest. You know, half-assed throws with a sub on the ground, but it's working. So
nice.
Yeah.
What's the comp scene differences between judo and jiu-jitsu? I'm sorry, man. I'm probably going to ask you a lot of comparison questions because you know it's rare that we have someone who's got a foot in both worlds. But,
look, for me, the judo actually do it up here. They do it better. They have a monthly comp. So every month, you know, first Sunday every month we're at a comp. Whereas jits predominantly, I run 3 comps a year, and there might be 1 or 2 others maximum. So there might be 3 or 4 comps a year in the Northern Territory. So without travel, the jits side just doesn't get the comp experience. But you go to a judo comp. I think the first one I went to, I'm standing on the side of the barrier screaming out, you know, to my guy, do this, do that, do this. And the whole crowd behind me is quiet. And they're looking at me like I'm absolutely psychotic, because in the judo world, you don't yell out, you don't scream, it's very traditional in comparison. So, you know, there's always me and a couple of Brazilians standing on the side screaming out and everyone abusing us for making too much noise. So it's a different world.
Interesting. Wow.
You think that's the Japanese beginnings? It makes it that way?
Yeah, and yeah, once it's gone into that sort of Olympic sport, you get the slightly more people where really want to follow the rules to the letter.
Yeah.
Guys, I have to share my screen briefly because someone just sent me this before. Just speaking of people yelling out in jiu-jitsu, this is something new. I don't. If you've seen this,
Yes, I've seen this one. Yeah.
Now that's some screaming out. That's next
We can't
level.
actually hear it, but we can. Yeah.
You couldn't hear that? Oh.
No.
She's
No, but we,
saying,
yeah.
just gonna hold you there. It just stops his roll. It says, "Shut up, Natalie." It's just like so wrong on so many levels. It just gives away so much of the dynamics of that relationship. But yeah, jiu-jitsu is known for being very vocal, and you know.
Oh, yeah. So I had one in a comp in Sydney the other week where I was literally on the side. She'd gone to mount, and I'm yelling out, "Stay there, don't move." And she steps over for a topside triangle, and I'm like, "Don't." She looks at me like, "It's okay. You don't know what I'm doing." Goes to roll to bottom with the triangle, fails completely, gets past, loses the match. There's always that kind of love and dynamic between a coach and a student who happens to be a white and just, you don't know what I'm doing. So why can you coach me from the side, you know?
Yeah. It
You've
is.
got to love it.
So go on, Kim.
Sorry, you go, Anton.
Oh, I was just going to say, well, that is a big difference, right? Like you're saying that in judo, it's really you versus your opponent, whereas in jiu-jitsu, it's you and your corner person versus your opponent and their corner person, really.
Yeah, and it makes a big difference in my opinion. In the judo realm, the coach who's sitting on the side of the mat is actually not allowed to speak. They're sitting in a booth. Only between the pauses when they reset are they allowed to talk. Otherwise, they're not allowed to speak. Whereas I found in the jits realm, somebody who's been coached, having that third person point of view, just pointing out something very simple, can make a massive difference, or telling you to breathe, stop, slow down, wait a second before you transition, collect your points before moving on for a sub. It's invaluable. I think it makes big difference to fighters.
Absolutely. And in MMA as well, obviously. Massive.
Yep. Well, I was going to ask you, Warrick, about your progress as a coach. Like, how have you found that? Is this, when you started up this club, was that your first time coaching, and how has it kind of helped your jiu-jitsu especially?
No, look, because whatever it was 13, 14 odd years ago when I transitioned into the jits out of MMA, there was only white belts in the Northern Territory. I think back, but probably not long after that, you even popped up.
Yeah, I did.
Way in the early days, it was just a bunch of white belts sitting around in a gym hall, you know, sort of teaching each other.
Yeah.
So I probably started teaching from when I started because no one sort of had a direction. So I would just go and, you know, YouTube or find a video or whatever, and I'd come on the mat and I would just teach it. So I've sort of always done it that way. Always read my own books or my own material and taught. So I think I've been teaching since I started effectively. And don't get me wrong, the others that were there taught me as well. It wasn't a one-sided battle, but we've always just been that way up here. It wasn't for the first 5 or 6 years before we had somebody from an interstate who came and stayed, who had colour, people like Dave Nichols, and I think you've had Matty Chick on in the past, where they've come up, but they've already come up to brown or something, but they weren't there for the first few years. And due to the dynamics, they didn't really become the coach either. They sort of stayed on the sidelines and watched the progression. So now you've got all of those guys are in their own clubs between the, you know, Chris and all those boys up in their club, and so on across over at Dave's club and Irish's club and Matt's club. So all of us were, you know, effectively started together and taught each other. So yeah, taking on my club when I bought it, and actually becoming a coach, like the formal head coach, changed a little bit because previously I didn't deal with the belts. We were all the same level, we were all the same rank. So now dealing as a head coach and growing from, I've had to grow every color. So I've grown, you know, my first browns are coming through and my first purples are coming through, that sort of stuff. Having to grow them and work out how not to degrade your colors as time went on. Because, you know, if you rock up from work having a bad day and they're having a good day and they roll with you and you think, Jesus, that guy's awesome, maybe I should make him up. And then 2 weeks later, you're having a good day and he's having a crap day and you're like, oh, actually, no, I'm not going to do that. And your mind is switching between yes and no and yes and maybe, and you're going, well, what can I compare him to? I don't have another brown belt, or I don't have another purple belt. And it's $1,000 to fly to Melbourne for a competition, and no other club around in Darwin I can send him to go and test his skills. So I found over time, your colors get better or your colors get worse depending on the head coach, unfortunately. So I just didn't want to get stuck in that negative cycle and more of an improvement cycle. So I think I became one of the hardest judges on that in the Northern Territory. I'm probably the prick of all of the clubs, and the slowest to grade.
Yeah.
But I believe that the love and the faith in their color from my students rewards me for it. So
sure.
Yeah.
So you're saying that you would rather keep someone down than put them up if you were in question?
Yeah, it depends on what I've got them to compare them to. You know, I'd like to turn around and say that a 50-weight blue belt should be able to, you know, take on another 100-kilo purple belt and prove he's purple, but it doesn't work that way in reality. But if I've got 4 or 5, you know, 60-kilo people between a blue and a purple and a brown, and I can, you know, sort of see where one sits in comparison to the other as an average, because good days, bad days, work stress, so on. I can get an idea on whether they're advancing or I'm having a bad day and they're just kicking my ass because I'm tired and old, you know, in comparison to this 20-year-old who's coming in and he's just all fire. So I would prefer to, I prefer not to necessarily make them up too early if I didn't have to. I found over the years here where not only me, but other people during the 16 to 18 transition from that sort of green, late kid, green, black into that straight into the adult blue can make them or break them. I've seen it break more than I've seen it make, to be honest, which is heartbreaking after you watch your kid go from 5 or 6 years or 10 years worth of training and then he's not ready for blue, but you don't want to make him white because you feel that it's not, you know, it's not nice on him. You make him up early, he gets his ass handed to him and then he quits. just see it too often. So I would rather hold off a little bit more, and if possible, get them to a comp where they can get an honest review of themselves. You know, when your opponent's really going 100%, because we know what it's like at a club. You roll with somebody and you think you've got it all over them, and then you go to comp with them and they kick your ass.
That's
You're
so
like,
true,
where the hell
isn't
did
it?
that come from?
Yeah.
So I've been holding back the whole time, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You never know what someone's going to give you until comp day when they give
Yeah.
it to you.
Yeah. So true.
So I think the lack of comps that we have up here, unfortunately, just makes that comparative ability harder.
Yeah, it's really interesting what you were saying about like I guess just the remoteness of Darwin, of the Northern Territory. We're probably a little bit spoiled here in the southern states, in Melbourne especially, that we do have so many clubs, so much jiu-jitsu around. Do you ever look at going, like, I think you were just in Bali, yeah? So it's almost easier for you to go there than it would be to come to Melbourne. And do your guys go out there much? Go to Bali and other places to train?
Yeah, look, we were doing Singapore, Malaysia, Manila, that sort of circuit pre-COVID, because Jetstar flew direct to Singapore, and then on from there. But COVID's killed those flights, so we try to jump into Bali, which I did obviously last week. But the competition scene in Bali isn't really there. There's a lot of people floating through to train with, which is great, but no real major comp scene. So although it's great, we can get into Bali for $200 each way, and you know, it's 2.5 hour flight. It's nothing. We're talking with them at the moment to see if we can come up with a competition that sort of runs more regularly, that I can pump more people through, because I just can't get into Singapore where I would get into for some of the other comps, or back into Manila where we used to fight a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, traveling into any other state of Australia cost me double. I mean, paying $800, $900 to Melbourne.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, which I, you know, even this year I fully paid for, ready to go in October, and Panpax has disappeared on me, you know. So all of a sudden it's like, what do you do with that money and that time that I've spent? I've got a week in Melbourne now.
What do you mean? Is the Panpax not going on this year?
As far as I'm concerned, it's disappeared. It's no longer on the schedule. You can't go into it. You can't join it. It's vanished.
Maybe they didn't make enough money last year. God, who knows how that was possible when they charged like $300 entry. But
I'm just checking.
to any IBJJF fans out there.
Let's do this. This is dirt right here, guys. So you're saying there is no Panpax?
Well, it wasn't, no, because I had prepaid for this and ready to go a month ago, and it disappeared off the AFBJJ site, so I couldn't find Panpax anymore.
Right.
No, but Panpax won't be AFBJJ, it'll be IBJJ.
No, IFBJ, but they have it on the calendar.
That's not on there either.
It was on the calendar, and then it disappeared off the calendar. Same as you'll see the Northern Territory titles disappeared off the calendar.
Yeah, interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we've lost the titles up here this year as well.
I'm not sure it's on Smooth Cold Panton. I think it's just on the IBJJF website. I don't think you'll find it there. You have to IBJJF. Yeah.
Let's have a look.
Maybe it's too small for them.
I booked airfares and flights and everything for students and myself to Melbourne, but
this will be the first time. Well, you heard it here first.
You did.
It's normally at the last weekend of October. Go to October.
Yeah, 26th or something it was. I remember right.
No, to the right. Just go down to the month.
I'm just looking for it'll be.
Oh, you're gonna go. Yeah, I reckon.
Sydney International Open.
Nah, that's it.
They
didn't do anything. Yeah.
Maybe there's been some sort of falling out or something.
Yeah, because last year's Panpax was tiny. Like, it was way smaller than it's ever been. I think it was only 4 mats or something like that. Normally there's about 8 mats at least, and it was very poorly attended because that was the first one post-COVID. So maybe they've thought it's just too expensive for them.
Yeah, I think there's a real kind of disruption going on in the BJJ circuit, like competition circuit. Like, it used to only be the big comps that people wanted to do, and they'd care a lot about their AFBJJ and their IBJJ points. Now they seem to just want to grapple and have good competitions. It seems to be like the context has shifted for competing.
Well, we always had that issue in the Northern Territory. No one came here for the comps, for the points, because it was too expensive and too hard. This year the prices changed dramatically for that. So at a local level, we couldn't run it, or no one wanted to do it anymore. So it's dead in the Northern Territory as it this year.
Yeah.
So there's no state titles for your state?
No. So Dave and Karen, ran it for the last couple of years lovingly. I used to have the medals made for them at cost, and we used to run it at about $35-40 a head just to we could get people in. And we did the good old, if they were close enough in weight and age, you sort of mixed a couple of belts and let them go. It was still country in that style, But this year with the rules where you had to pay a few $1,000s to have the rights to run it, you couldn't charge any less than $89, and you couldn't mix belts, you can't mix ages, you can't mix and so on. We don't have the numbers. So in the end, it was like we would have one kid in every category, in every age, and every weight. And then you don't get a refund. It was just no one wanted to attend. So effectively, most of us sort of said, well, no one's going to fight anyone.
Yeah.
So no one's going to pay out a couple of $1,000s to run a comp that they can't run, or that won't work, So
such a shame, because I mean, I've been to the Northern Territory a couple of times, and I did exactly what you said, Warrick. Like, I went up and I had, obviously it was different people that I could compete against, and it was a great holiday. Like, it's a beautiful part of Australia. Everyone should go there, but I suppose not everybody's willing to part with that, few $100s to get there to compete. So
well, plus, I mean, if you talk about $800 or so to get here, then you a couple of $400 or $500 in accommodation, and then $100 a category to enter, and you're going to fight one person.
Especially when you could go to Sydney for half that and have probably 5 or 6 people in your division.
So for some points on a national ranking, it just wasn't enough. And I mean, you go back 10 years, we were running it out on the beach.
They did an outdoor comp.
Kind of open source idea that I would love to run around the country. And this is definitely about the love of the sport. This is actually, I don't know what it does for profits of comps, but what it does is it makes it accessible. My idea is that as you come up through the balance, you have to contribute to competing. It's part of your contribution to the sport. So you volunteer at events, whether or not as your purple belt and above, you have to referee. When you're white and blue belt, you have to run the bullpen. You have to do this and that. And it's actually it becomes embedded in the club culture that we actually support competing as a community. So therefore, we don't have to pay a lot of wages to a lot of people. You know what I mean? You just and you get your experience. You learn how to, you're seeing people around you competing, all of this sort of stuff. Just basically make it part of the sport. I think if you're in sailing or you're in, I don't know, basketball, whatever you're in, there's a level of kind of club participation expected that I don't see it happening very often in BJJ. I think there's room for something like that.
Yeah, look, I 100% agree. We do something similar in our club. I'm probably I'm the largest club in the NT, and I run pretty much 90% of the comps here in the NT. Basically, my guys do exactly that. If you're blue belt and purple belt, I expect you to give refereeing a go.
Really?
If not, you're on the tables scoring, or you run around doing the marshalling, or you hand out the medals, or whatever it may be. But like this year, again, with the NT titles, I have everyone, all my refs are volunteer, all my helpers on the tables are volunteer. I charge $25 a head. So people will just get in there, give it a go, go home, do kids on one day, adults the next day, just have some fun. We don't care about the money. We just want, and I've got, my medals are worth $30 a piece. They're larger than the world title medals. I literally got a couple of Queenies world medals, and then, sort of design them over the top of that. Awesome. So they're big, they're fat, they're heavy, and the kids love them because the kids can barely carry them, Awesome. So we do it purely for the love of this sport. But with the AFBJJ this year, it was like, you can't have volunteer refs, you can't have volunteer table staff. You have to pay them. You have to pay this. You have to go and do the, 3 a.m. certification on the IFBJJ scoring and so on, went the money. So we just couldn't afford such things. So that's why the studio runs its own clubs. I mean, we're running a comp in a couple of weeks, which we've called the NT titles for the sake of having something called the NT titles in the NT this year. costs you $25 a head for the kids to enter.
Mhm.
And I get about 170 fights
Mhm.
each day for 2 days. It's an absolute blast.
Wow, man, I acknowledge you, man. You are truly a contribution at the highest level to the NT, man. Thank you so much from down here, because it sounds like it's not about the money.
I can only do it with the support of the other clubs too. You know, the other club owners here, we all talk and we all support each other. So we're lucky because we are so small and we all started together within reason, where we're all quite open and honest and you know, help each other out. So
that's brilliant.
It's good for to be that little community.
So what you were saying earlier about then trying to organise other comps, that you really are going to have to, because it sounds like, if I could be bold to say, that the AFBJJ are almost like just letting you be now. Like you just kind of left to your own devices. You're not going to be offered future titles, you know, state titles. So
well, they probably will. I mean, they offered it out of I can't remember the fella's name out of Brisbane who runs the titles in Queensland. He was going to fly up.
Marcus, is it Marcus?
I'd have to check again. A little short, young Brazilian guy, really nice fella.
Daniel Lima.
Yes, he's a
yeah.
legend.
Yeah, we've had him on the podcast before.
Yeah, he was going to come up and run it, but you know, by the time he put out $5,000 or $6,000 to get here and run it, he would have probably 60 participants. So as you double the value of the entrance fee, you have the competitors. And people aren't going to fly, as we just spoke about before, people aren't going to fly into state to do this. So the concept that, you know, having specialized medals that the AFBJJ now brought in for the different color for each state and having the reward points for the national ranking is going to draw people from interstate. No one's paying $1,000 for that. Yeah, you wouldn't pay $1,000 to fly up here to fight one person just for national ranking points. I mean, go to 3 comps in any state in Australia for that.
It's interesting. I mean, like I love Peter Devine, you know, he's a mate. But having said that, what I hear is, and I see it everywhere, this is not just a jiu-jitsu related, you know, issue, but sometimes when a company thinks it's taking the best possible action for all concerned, it's not, you know, and I'm sure that they don't realize the impact of the situation to this degree, you know, to actually.
I think this is the first year where it's sort of been forced. Yeah. Where no one could physically do it. It's a physical impossibility. So, you know, I think the MT titles averages around sort of, you know, a 50 to 60 sort of participants. And without being able to blend them, you can't get any fights. Whereas in a private sector, we have 120, 130 odd participants because the cost is a third. And I can mix the colors and the age groups just a little bit, that we end up with brackets of 5 or 6, and it's a great comp. It's a big difference in a minor rule, but if you want to standardize nationally, it works great for the big cities, won't work for the small ones.
Yeah, man. Wow. Okay. Well,
could you swap over your flights to come down for the nationals that are in August?
No, I'm running a comp. And I've got my lovely oversight of Anthony Lang flying into Darwin to come give me some seminars with Jess Fraser on the back end of the year coming up as well. So
I think
busy times for me. We skipped the Oz Cup to go to Pan Pacs, and then after we booked and paid, Pan Pacs died, but we'd already booked everything else in the Oz Cup. So
I think
it is always the way.
Time fly down to Melbourne, meet with Peter Devine, and run him right through this entire situation, okay, and make sure he's fully aware. because
I'm sure he'll pick it up by the next year's one.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right. Wow.
And Warrick, going back to yourself, tell us about like your journey. Injuries. Have you had many injuries?
Look, in the jits front, no. The second I took over judo, new ACL, knee reconstruction, straight into it. I think it was in the first year of going back into judo comps. I blew a knee and I had all sorts of problems since. But on the jits front, no, I'll get the old gorilla knuckles and beautiful ears, but nothing I would call a substantial injury, to be honest.
Oh, lucky.
I don't play legs though. I'm probably lucky for that.
I've got a neck.
I play the too old category for the leg game.
Yeah, we all
never too old. You're younger than me. Come on.
I've done a Lockie seminar out there in the beautiful islands, and I've learned it all, but I'm quite happy for people not to yank my knee apart with my heel. So I'll stick to my old school jiu-jitsu of just, if I'm laying on top of you, you're not going to get to my legs.
So you did a Lockie seminar, a Lockie Giles seminar, like out on an island somewhere.
Yeah, Hamilton Island or wherever it is. Yeah, I flew
Yeah.
I flew a crew of 6 of us down, hired a shadow thing, and spent a week out there playing legs with him, just so we have the knowledge to bring back into the club,
What was that like? What was the whole experience like?
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah, beautiful place. I took the kids and stuff, so we would train all day and then go play out on the beach all night. And yeah, I was joined by a few other guys that are obviously passionate about the sport. And yeah, look, just if you get 5 days of non-stop leg attacks is a lot of information, like any seminar.
Yeah.
But each one of us sort of grabbed a section to bring home and pass it on from there. So yeah, it was an awesome experience and a beautiful place to train. If you're going to go train somewhere out on the side of a cliff looking at the beach, that's the place to do it.
Yeah.
And Warrick, tell us about the scene in Darwin. Like you talked about how you're all quite close as clubs and there's not a lot of politics, but what about the students that are coming through? Are they mostly kind of fly in, fly out, or what?
No, we've got a couple of 100,000 people that live here, so most of us have pretty staple students. I think I had one random one come through one day while one of my lunch classes and beat up a heap of my guys, and the guys were talking to him, trying to work out who this guy was, and it worked out to be Daniel Strauss or something who just happened to fly in on a layover for a couple of hours out of America. The lumberjack or whatever they call him.
Cool.
So we get some randoms like that just pop in and annihilate everyone and keep on moving. But no, look, I actually recommend to most of my students that if they get, other clubs have different training days to us. So when I'm on a judo night and they don't want to do judo, I recommend they pop over and pop into another club, or most of the clubs do an open Sunday sesh, either in the morning or the afternoon, so we can pop over to a Devine club or the Darwin Judo club, the Darwin Jits Academy,
The guy.
and train with some of these other guys and learn something different. But yeah, he randomly popped in and just he was wearing the full getup of his own lumberjack uniform and stuff, and then he just didn't tell anyone who he was. No one knew him until they said he's just way too good. And one of the guys went to the bathroom and Googled him and then started sending me messages saying, "This guy's here in the club. Come."
Yeah, wow. So he looks pretty amazing.
Yeah, like that. That's his getup. Yeah, he was in that.
What a legend.
Rocked up and just started annihilating all my little blue belts. It was I wasn't there, unfortunately. I missed him, but I did have a chat with him after it and thanked him for coming in.
What a champion. Yep. I love it. The BJJ identity needs to be developed more. People need to give themselves, names and have clothes to match and stuff. That'd be great. We need more lumberjacks. So good. Yeah, I think we've got 3 minutes 26 left. Where should we take this? Where should we take this magical 3 minutes 26 seconds? Like, okay, seminar.
One of those no-go zones, right?
Yeah, one of those things you told us we can't talk about. Seminars, like, this is an interesting topic. Like, how do you retain, or how much do you retain from a seminar when you're there doing something for 5 days? As you said, you broke it into little chunks. Is it still alive for you, that stuff? Or have you forgotten more than you?
Look, to be honest, I've got the whole thing was filmed, and I can tell you I've forgotten a hell of a lot more than I learned, and that's no reflection on the instructor. That is definitely a reflection on me doing it over and over again. But I typically don't like my whites and blues playing in that realm, because one of them will try and freak out and not tap correctly. So I prefer to wait till I get higher belts, and I've only got a handful of that sort of purple and only got one brown and one other black in the place. So it's not an experience or level that we're pushing through just yet. But it's inevitable. It's just at the right time with the right colors, I guess.
Yeah. Awesome.
But the typical seminar, I've done seminars where 3 hours of non-stop technique, and you walk out there again and, geez, what was the first one?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
But I've also had one where I took 6 students across to Luda's house there to see their coach who had flown up, Carlos Vieira, and he did a seminar, and pure fluke, pure chance, it happened to be identical to my Thursday night class.
Wow.
Exact same techniques, slightly different, but pretty much identical techniques done the same way. And all of my students looked at me and said, "Oh, why do we go on to seminars? We just did this on Thursday." I said, "Well, not all seminars are quite that lucky, but it just happened to be the perfect lineup that I'd done exactly the same 3 techniques." But
Wow.
There you go.
yeah, you never
Awesome.
know what you're going to get at a seminar, I guess.
That's right. That's right. And any final words, any parting thoughts, Warwick, just in the last minute, we're about to wind up. Any for our listeners?
Too many of them, but simply, if you're watching this and you're newish to jits, take your beating, enjoy it, because it doesn't stop. So if you don't learn to enjoy it now, you're never gonna, because even at my level, all I do is cop beatings from blacks that have been around longer.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
enjoy it.
I love that, man. Embrace the
very good. Awesome. Well, when you are down in Melbourne in October, when you don't have a comp to compete at, but come down and see us, and yeah, hopefully we can see you again in person. I'm not sure when I'll be back to the Northern Territory, but yeah, thanks very much for giving up your time. We'll have this out in a couple of weeks, so if you could share it on your social media, that would be very grateful for that.
Awesome.
And
Thank you very much.
yeah, we look
pleasure.
forward to.
Thank you both for having me. It's yeah, time has flown. It's been amazing. So thank you.
Absolutely. Peace out,
Thank you.
everybody. Catch you later. Bye.
See ya.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.